Hello, this is candidate master Viktor Neustroev, and today I'm going to review game number 7 between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. Magnus Carlsen again played for white pieces. Of course, I believe you know how this game ended. If not, then it's easy to guess. Again, the 7th game ended in a draw, and the score is 3.5 to 3.5. Let's hope that something different than the draw will happen in the game number 8. Okay, so the game number 7 was not sharp, so it was really calm with no threats and almost no advantage for any of the sides. It was d4, so Magnus decided to stick to the d4 line, but previously he didn't achieve anything in this line, so they continued. Knight f3, knight f6, and it was queen's gambit with bishop f4, the same line as it was played in the game number 2. Castle e3 and c5. Again, instead of c5, knight d7 is also a possible move, but c5 was played. And here d takes on c5. So it's possible to take on d5 here, then knight d5, knight takes on d5, and queen takes on d5. Maybe this position will be more interesting. However, d takes on c5 was played, bishop takes on c5, queen c2. Again, here it makes sense for white to let black play with an isolated pawn on d5. So c takes on d5, knight takes on d5, knight takes on d5, pawn takes on d5. So one minor piece was traded. The position looks good for white, however his pieces are not developed yet, so the bishop is still on f1, and black should be very careful and don't allow white to activate his pieces. At the same time, black can play bishop b4, so that's why a3 is the next move. a3, knight c6, bishop d3. I really wonder why Magnus Carlsen decided not to play this position. Here I believe white has some practical chances to win, but of course this current advantage is not enough for victory. If black plays correctly, then it will be a draw anyway. However, maybe in this position black would make a mistake. Maybe Magnus Carlsen will try it next time. Okay, let's go back to the game. Queen c2 was played, knight c6. a3, queen a5. That's a typical line. If white wants to play sharp, he can castle queenside, as it was happened in the game between Karakin and Anand this year in Norway. So then knight e4, knight takes on e4, pawn takes, queen takes, bishop a3, pawn takes, queen a3, king d2, rook d8, king a2, queen b2, rook d2, rook takes rook, knight d2, e5, bishop j3, and bishop g4. But maybe Magnus knew this line. It leads to a perpetual check, so it will be draw anyway. However, the position was very sharp, and I believe Magnus Carlsen and his team could create some novelties there. Okay, anyway, he decided to play knight d2. The idea is quite clear, to play knight b3, and here black usually plays bishop b4 on bishop e7. If bishop b4, for example, then C takes on d5, E takes on d5. So the bishop is not hanging because of the rook here. Knight b3, bishop c3 check. Pawn takes and queen d8. So here the position looks slightly better for white by the first glance, but actually both sides have chances to win or to make a draw, for example. Black has a weakness on d5, the pawn on c3 is weak for white, however he can advance it and then trade. This position happened in the game between Veselin Topalov against Hikaru Nakamura. Okay, let's go back. So bishop e7 was the other move. Then rook d1, e5, bishop g5, d4, knight b3, queen d8, knight b5. And in this position, the only move, bishop d7, equalizes the position. All others lead to the advantage of white. If now knight takes on d4, then queen a5 check, queen d2, queen b6. And here black has a compensation for the sacrificed pawn. He has a pair of good bishops, and later this bishop can come to c5. And the main problem for white is that he is not developed yet. If, for example, in this position white takes with the rook, then he will be worse. So here h6, bishop c5, knight g4, trying to take the pawn on f2, and even f5 with the counterplay. So it's quite clear that black is much better in this position. It's almost a winning position. Okay. Maybe Magnus Carlsen's team was prepared for both these continuations, bishop b4 and bishop e7, but I'm absolutely sure, I can't say I'm sure, but I think that they were not prepared for queen d8, because after this move Magnus Carlsen spent really much time for his next move, and he played knight b3. Again, bishop e7 is usually played in this position. However, black, Fabiano Caruana, played a novelty. He played bishop b6. How to play? Maybe it still makes sense to capture on d5. Or to play rook d1 first and then capture on d5. Then a5, bishop g5, a4, knight goes back to d2, and d4. And here I think white is better. Of course, d4 is a active move, and it activates all black pieces except the bishop on c8, and of course white is not developed yet, but there is a counterplay on the d file. At the same time, there is a strong pin with the bishop on g5. However, here Magnus Carlsen played bishop e2, and he totally lost the opening advantage here. By the way, another move was castle queenside here, then bishop d7 and g4, starting the attack on the king side. This is a very sharp line, but of course here both sides have chances to win. Okay, bishop e2, and when the bishop went and spent one tempo, now black can take on c4. However, here black played queen e7. This is the last time when Fabiano Caruana asked Magnus Carlsen if he wants to create an isolated pawn on d5. For example, c takes on d5, knight d5, knight d5, e takes on d5. But actually in this position there is no advantage for white. Of course the pawn is weak, but it is compensated by poorly placed white pieces. And black continues with his plan. Bishop e6, rook f to d8, rook a to c8, so his pieces are quite active. So bishop g5, and then finally d takes on c4. Bishop c4 looks more natural in this position. Then bishop d7, castle, knight e5, bishop goes back, rook f c8. Then maybe knight d4. And this position can be played for 3 results. So maybe later in the match we will see such positions when both sides play for victory. Magnus Carlsen is considered to be a favorite for the tie-break. So he is better in rapid and blitz. But in classical chess with a standard time control, currently they both, the challenger and the champion, are approximately equal. Okay, let's go back and stick to the game. So here knight d2 was played, knight e5, and white castled. So why not to take on c4? If now white takes on c4 with the knight, then knight takes knight, bishop takes, and queen c5, attacking both bishops simultaneously. So what to do? Bishop takes on f6, then queen takes on c4, and the bishop on f6 is hanging. So here bishop to e5, f6, bishop d4, he loses the pawn. If bishop g3, then e5, and this bishop is out of the game. That's why to take on c4 was too early and Magnus castled. Bishop d7. Bishop f4. So here white should hurry to take back the pawn, because if not, then black can protect it. Knight g6 was played with a temper, and bishop g3, bishop c6, knight takes on c4, bishop c7, rook d1, activating the rook, rook f to d8, then they traded a pair of rooks, then the other pair, knight d5, queen d4. So this move was important because if knight takes here, then queen takes. White doesn't want to ruin his pawn structure. Knight c3, queen c3. And in this position it makes sense to play bishop b5 to stop any counterplay after knight a5. But black played bishop g3, and after this move bishop d3 was played, but if f4, the position can be slightly better for white, so king goes to f2. At the same time, the g pawn can be advanced to g4, g5 if needed. So white king is safe, and at the same time it's closer to the center, which is important in the end game if they trade the queens. However, bishop d3 was played. Now the idea was clear, to take on g6, then to play knight a5, b6, but now this move doesn't work, because if so, and knight e5, then queen d1, queen h5 leads to a perpetual check. That's why f3. But bishop goes to b7 now. Bishop takes on g6, then h takes on g6, e4, queen c7, and black tries to play for victory, but unfortunately he can't do anything. So b5 with the idea to trade the queens and to destroy the pawn structure looks good, but after e5 Actually, it doesn't work because white king is too close to the center. It can occupy the d4 square immediately. Queen c5 first, and now if king f1, then bishop a6 can be played. That's why here king to h2. However, still bishop a6. Knight d6, the queens were traded. f6, f4. King f8, and now the king wants to come to the center, but white also can join his king to the center. King g1, king e7, king f2, king d7. Black king is active, but at the same time it can move to c6 because he leaves these 2 pawns unprotected. For example, knight e8 can be played, or knight f7, knight h8, attacking the pawn on g6. King e3, and bishop f1 was played here. King f2, bishop a6, and this is how they repeated the position, and then Caruana claimed the draw. So this is how this game ended in a draw. Yes, I can say that it's a drawish position, and there is almost no chances to play for a victory, especially if you're a strong player and you play against another strong player. So I can't say that this game was boring, but at the same time I prefer to watch more sharp games, and I hope that next game will be really sharp with chances to win for both sides. Let's just see the nice game in this match. Okay, thank you for your attention.